Hey, what's up, small group leaders? I wanted just to take a few minutes to talk about in your small group time, specifically when you're with the students. It's really important for us to check in to see how they're doing. And you can do that, kind of just informally beforehand. But you can also do that as, go around the circle, highs and lows, that sort of thing. But you can also, it's important for us to be able to talk about like, hey, how can we pray for you? Now, a couple things that they're going to say every time is one is, school. And we'll just be, okay, great. Well, that's that we're going to pray for your schooling. And that comes up a lot. And, for grandma and whoever else that comes up, that's great. And jot those down. But make sure you get specifically, how can you pray for them? Because they're going to, the things they're going to say are going to give you insights to who they are, the tension that they have in their life, how their home life's going, how school's going, things that they're really wrestling with. So there's going to be insights that you're going to get because you're asking the students, how can I pray for you? And probably the biggest thing I want to talk about in our time here is to write stuff down. You will never remember the things that you think that you'll remember. It is so important to have a system of writing things down and remembering. When I have a student that tells me something, I'm going to add it to my Google Calendar right away. And you've probably even seen me write things down all the time because I'm not going to remember. And I don't want to try to remember because I'm not going to. And so make sure you write your prayer requests down. If that's on a Google Keep or a shared document between you and your small group leaders, if that's just on a sticky note on your phone that's labeled, my stud, small group, whatever it is, like you need to find a system that works for you, that's going to be easy, consistent, allow you to easily manage it and even add new prayer requests to it. Because if you ask a student, how can I pray for you? And then you don't ever follow up with them, like that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what if tonight or on Wednesday night, you ask a student, hey, how can I pray for you? And they tell you, and then, you message them because they said, hey, on Friday, I've got foot surgery. And so when you message them on Thursday, hey man, I'm praying for you for your foot surgery. What do you need? And then you message them, the day after and say, hey, how'd the surgery go? Or even show up at the hospital to see them or to check in with their family. Like, that stuff matters. That says that you took the time to write it down, to remember it, to keep track of it, and all that sort of stuff. And also, like this is kind of just a couple of the general rules that I specifically use. I don't keep emails in my inbox because an email to me is a to-do list. I got to get that done. So if there's an email in my inbox, it means I have to do it. I treat text messages the same way. I don't keep text messages. Some of you may do. Most of the iMessages are synced with my computer. But very seldom have I ever had to go back and to find a message. But maybe you're different, and that's fine. This is what works for me. I delete every text message after I'm done with it because that tells me it's something I had to do. It's off my list. So that way when a student or a parent messages me, I'm not going to forget to get back to them. So I keep my email inbox cleaned up. I keep my text messages cleaned up. I usually only have anywhere I'll end the day with 15 or 20 maybe. And then by the morning when I wake up early and go through it all, I usually reply fairly early, and then I delete those out. And that's just a system that works for me. I'm a very methodical, systematic person, but nonetheless, you need to figure out what works best for you in terms of documenting and writing down how you're going to pray for your students when they share prayer requests, when they share tension that takes place. Like, you need to be able to have a system that works for you. So find a way to write stuff down. And if for any of you think like, well, I just remember. No, you won't remember. That's not going to happen. That's what students say all the time is, I should have wrote that down. It's really important. If you're going to care for your few really well, write that stuff down. Make sure you take notes in whatever format that works for you. Like, I like to handwrite things, and then I usually end up transferring that to a digital format because I can access that whenever I want. So however it works for you. And I'm assuming most of you have probably figured out how to do this just because you're managing jobs, family. Some of you have teenagers or kids that you're managing. So you figure this out. So try to figure it out. You need to figure it out in terms of your small group as well. And that may be also from a perspective, like, how are you going to communicate with your students on a weekly basis? Like, do you have all of their cell phones? If not, hey, let's get those cell phones. And do you have a list of your students? Like, I always just copied and pasted a list onto a sticky note. So that way, wherever I was, I could pull that up and I could text out my 15 guys in a matter of a few minutes. just to see how they're doing. I didn't have to have anything with me other than my phone, because I always have my phone with me. Or my phone is synced to my computer, so I can pull up documents from my computer off of my phone. And so then I can see those lists. So I have certain things saved on my desktop that I can access. And one of those is a list of students. And that way I just remember to message them. And so again, this may be simplistic, which I think it is, but figuring out the process that works for you to make sure that none of your students are missed. Because here's the reality. We're a church that values discipleship. You have to earn the right to speak into a student's life. That includes sharing wisdom, insight, critiquing them, pushing back appropriately when they need it, but also biblical wisdom and biblical truth and biblical authority that God has given us to be able to communicate to students. And so for us to figure out having a system of writing those things down is extremely, extremely helpful. And so by being a church that values discipleship, if you've got, let's say you have 13 students on your roster, and you go this entire semester without figuring out a system to make sure every one of your students hears from you on a weekly basis, if they show up or not. If you haven't figured out a system, what happens? Practically speaking, what happens is that student is not being cared for. Nobody knows them. And so by having a system in place that works, a list on an email, a sticky note, however you do it, print it out, it's in your wallet or in your purse. It doesn't matter to me how you do it. But what matters is to make sure that we know who our few are, that we pour into our few on a consistent basis. And so it's easy for students to just fall through the cracks. And so that's why it's so important for us to be able to figure out the systems of writing things down and knowing who our few are and getting those cell phones or their parents' cell phones even as well. Like I've had the same guys for a long time. And so I just know all their names by now. But maybe you need to have Lucas and Melissa Jackson, and underneath that if you have Paisley, my daughter, then you have Paisley. And so, and then you have the cell phones next to, those names. Or you have an email next to Paisley, because she's not going to have a cell phone until she's like 17 probably. And so knowing that, but also having that written down is like, if you have another co-leader that needs that, then you just send them over your little sticky note and copy and paste, and they've got that student's information or that parent's information as well. And so all that to say is figuring out a system to writing down prayer requests, following up with students, writing things on your calendar or your digital calendar in whatever format that works is extremely needed for you to properly care for your few. It also is a great way for you to serve your co-leaders when they need that information as well. So I can't help stress enough in this 8-minute video the importance of writing things down. And when I say that, I mean in the moment. Be like, hey, oh, that's great. I'm pulling my phone out, John, and I'm writing it in. And I usually communicate to people, hey, I'm writing this down, so they don't think I'm just texting my grandma or whatever. But then I'm like, I'm writing this down because I want to remember. And so my Google Calendar is my go-to. I write everything on that for the most part. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Let's do all we can to care for our few. And a great way to do that is just to have a system to make sure that we're doing that.